Hello and welcome to What Was That? A new podcast where Nitesh and we will just do intros also. This is the first time we're properly doing this on video and you can see all the whole setup.
And in person.
In person, in Bangalore, because I was visiting. Nitesh, intro.
Hello, I'm Nitesh, entrepreneur, investor, writer, all the low budget entry level tags that are free to use for anybody who wants that.
Yes. And I am Vineet on Tarapanana, startup guy, trying to build a video production startup, which looks like this year should be a good year for us. Here's hoping. Yeah, ton of habit.
Vinip is being modest. Go ahead.
I am being modest because hopefully this will be a good year for us. So yeah, and why are we doing this podcast? This podcast is basically there's a lot happening every week in the business world, in the tech world, and one of us focuses more on business, one of us focuses more on tech. So we just do three of our own, three stories each. We pick up every week and we talk about them. So yeah, I think that's good enough for an intro.
Works for me.
Yes. So let's begin. Nitesh, what do you have for us this week?
My favorite news story of this week is that WeWork India aspired for an IPO. This is great. The market has been quite welcoming and forgiving of new IPOs for the last 5 years now, almost. So, makes sense. It's an offer for sale, which means that none of the money is going to go to the company. It's existing investors who are cashing out. Embassy is a big short construction group in Bangalore. They own about 76% of WeWork India. The rest is owned by one of the subsidiaries of WeWork. So they're doing an offer for sale. Embassy itself is not listed, so this is kind of their debut in equity markets. Although they do have a REIT, a real estate investment trust, and I'll leave it at that. So they have some market experience, but not a lot.
So what's your take? What's the pricing like?
No, that's not why I love this story. For some background, WeWork, the US wala WeWork, was doing quite well. They'd raised multiple rounds of funding from SoftBank, and the peak valuation was some $47 billion, and things were going great. And finally, like the redemption of any startup is to finally get listed. That's when they get knighthood and they become a company.
And everyone becomes rich. It's a very kill, guys.
Exactly. So WeWork US finally filed for an IPO. They call it an S1 filing in the US. And Adam Newman, the founder, the more charismatic founder, and his wife Rebecca took it on themselves to turn the S1 document into like propaganda, for want of a better word.
What's your problem with community adjusted EBITDA?
You beat me to it. It wasn't just that they finally stated out loud that our mission is to elevate the world's consciousness. That's why we're doing this, which is great for a VC boardroom, which is great on CNBC. It sounds wonderful. The S1 filing, like the DRHP that we have in India, is a legal document. Right? It's more of here's what we are offering, and here's every way that this might go wrong, and we are saying it up front. So we are covering our asses. Basically, that's what that document is for. And they turned it into a mission statement to the larger world that we are coming for you and we're going to leave the world a better place. Markets did not like it. The IPO crashed and burned. SoftBank lost a lot of money. Adam Newman left the company with $1 billion because he's smart. And Masayoshi Son of SoftBank is a masochist. But it is right at this moment that WeWork went off the rails. This filing. And WeWork India is at that moment. They have a more seasoned hand in Embassy in Jitubhai. And I'm sure they'll fare better than WeWork did. But it's fascinating that just one random subsidiary in one of the countries had a better fate than the parent company itself.
Have you seen the show, by the way?
We crashed.
What a show! What a show!
It is also.
Jared Leto in that show is just amazing. Like the Uber show was boring. It was nothing worse than. It was Joseph Gordon-Levitt playing
Oh, nice.
Travis Kalanick.
Okay.
It was okay. This one was just so much personality. This show was amazing.
It is amazing. Yeah. I Roar entered my playlist after watching that show. Katy Perry's Roar.
Yes.
Excellent show. Definitely recommend that. Uh, on WeWork, a couple of quick things. Matt Levine, who's a columnist for Bloomberg, wrote the best coverage of WeWork. Look it up, especially one of his columns called How Do You Like We Now, which was like a postmortem of WeWork post Adam Newman, and documenting the weird dysfunctional relationship that Masa Son and Adam Newman had. So that's a great column. Definitely check that out. Second, I have a personal anecdote here. I was one of the first tenants of WeWork India. When they launched, out of curiosity, I signed up. I was a tenant for the first 3 months.
How much were they charging? Like, because I remember they were trying to attract the Discoveries and the Nat Geos and the international companies, international customers.
For one seat, it was peanuts. That's all I
Yeah.
got, right? It was peanuts. I got a great welcome deal. I got a cabin for the price of a
When was this?
workstation.
2017.
2017.
Yeah. Personal anecdote. I had joined 91 Springboard for a brief while
Oh, okay.
in there to head their marketing and sales team. Didn't work out, multiple reasons with the founders. But yeah, we were watching WeWork very closely.
Right.
This is obviously when everyone in the industry was trying to build the tech valuations for what is a real estate meets hospitality play.
Right.
And now everything, it is a sensible business. Like once you realize that, like the last episode of the show also, where the new guy comes in and he's like, look, this is a real business. Let's make this a real business. Forget all the fluff. And when you come back to the real business, then yeah, it makes sense. It's like 9-year leases and give out 1 month whatever with your margin, with your 10-20% margins on top. And then it suddenly starts making sense. But not at a 10x, 20x valuation.
I think the model became at least operationally sensible after they started going after big clients.
Yeah.
That was the moment where things flipped, because WeWork originally, even WeWork in India, did not go after big clients in the beginning. They were pitching to the entrepreneurs, the handful of, like if you have a 4-member team or a 5-member team, that was their core target audience. That's how they got me, and that was the tenant mix in the first 3 months, at least when I was there. It was great because it was so new. At least once or twice a week, Karan Virwani was always there. He's the CEO, and Jitu Bhai, who's his dad and who's the founder of the Embassy Group.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Is a billionaire many times over. Would come in like once a week or so. You'd know because his Range Rover would be parked outside. And we would all joke that every Friday our average net worth would go up quite a bit.
Yeah, I had this running joke, like when I was staying in my last apartment complex, that I moved up because for the first 6 months I was parked next to a Wagoner. Then suddenly I was parked next to a BMW. I'm like, I have been promoted in life.
So that's it. I wish WeWork India all the best. And I hope that at least some people go back and watch the show or read Levine's columns, because it was a great moment in startup history, in business history, and just history in general. That's story number 1 for me.
But yes, I would also agree, subscribe to Matt Levine's newsletter. He writes really well.
He's the reason I got into finance.
Oh, wow.
Story for another day.
Yes, my first story. Deepseek is now available on Krutrim Cloud. Clickbait headline. And Krutrim is the Indian AI being developed by Desi Elon Musk, or as Nitesh Bhai calls him, Nisho Elon Musk, Bhavish Agarwal.
In that sentence, where do you put air quotes? It's so confusing.
I don't know.
Where do you put air quotes?
And I think they were like, oh, we will do Sanskrit AI and whatnot, Indian modeling, Indian training data. Data is the new oil, oil is the old data, something. He's been saying everything over the last 2 years.
He's a master at buzzword bingo.
He is a master at buzzword and he knows it works. Yeah, it absolutely works. So this news also was essentially just one tweet by the man and one massive send a press release out to everyone. So if I search for DeepSeek is now available on Krutrim Cloud, the first result is on Analytics India Mag. Only for my startup, basically. So you have to do backlinking, right, as part of search engine optimization.
Right.
So we also paid some firm, some, I don't know, this is illegal. This is not black hat, right? This is not black hat. No. You pay some firm and they put out press releases and some websites pick them up.
You just described the PR industry.
Pretty much. Right. So, and the funny thing is we paid like 5,000 rupees. So, first result is Analytics India Mag, which was part of that list. Second result is CIOL. I don't even know what it stands for, but same again, one of these PR thingies, they only exist for these purposes. And they appended, their headline says DeepSeek is now on Krutrim Cloud, driving AI growth in India. They are retired themselves. I saw another one saying AI unicorn Krutrim AI. And AI unicorn? Is it a unicorn? Is it a separate entity?
I have no idea.
Yeah, and
I don't think the VCs do either. It depends on which side of the bed our man woke up from. So,
people have realized that you can just say whatever and people will believe you. You never have to answer questions like, why did you say that when you knew it was not true? And of course, you learned that from the master, Mr. Elon Musk. Yeah. But, so that was a bit of a clickbait, but essentially everyone is now putting up DeepSeek on their servers. Last time we discussed that Microsoft had introduced it on their servers, on their Azure servers. Even now, Amazon is hosting DeepSeek. And this is funny because Microsoft owns roughly half of OpenAI. They've invested some $10 billion. Now, invested is in air quotes because a lot of that is just credits, compute credits on their own servers. Amazon has put $4 billion into Anthropic, which runs Claude, which is a competitor to ChatGPT, which nobody uses. It's nice for some purposes, but nobody uses it really. Google has invested $2 billion into Claude. And everyone is now putting up DeepSeek, which this is also funny because we've been hearing for so long that China, we need to ban, like we as in the US, they need to ban TikTok because it's a huge security threat. And now everyone is hosting a Chinese model 1 week after saying that, oh, look, there must be some threat, right? All that data will be going back. And now because it's open source, everyone's just taken it and put it up. The question is then, what is the value of OpenAI anymore? What does this mean? Like, bubble bursting is one thing, but essentially we're talking about a $340 billion company who now has a product that is closed source, very, very expensive. They are losing money on their most expensive subscriptions also.
okay.
So, why does OpenAI exist anymore is the question.
I was just going to ask, you preempted me, if DeepSeek wasn't open source, would it have been so widely adopted if it was still free but not open source?
No, it won't. Because enterprise applications is where everything, all the fun happens, right? It's open source, so now anyone can use it. Like anyone can just like Krutrim for whatever they're doing, right? If they're doing anything beyond press releases. If it weren't open source is an interesting question. Because then you have to use it, you have to sign up for an account and whatnot.
Right.
And on the Windows 0 side,
If it was still free, the highest tier, the best.
so I can only give my own use case. I am still using the paid ChatGPT $20 plan. But because it's got projects, right, it now allows me to group my searches. It remembers history.
So you've answered your own question.
Yeah, but these are all things that can be introduced very, very quickly.
Which is why Sam Altman is probably, for the first time in years, faltering a bit.
He should be, I think he will be faltering a lot.
No, in his posturing.
In his posturing, yeah. He did say last week, oh, look, competition, yay. But what else do you say?
How would you spin it if you were in his place?
That's how I would feel it if I were in his place. That's what he said.
Right.
Yeah.
Interesting.
It's my whole business model on which I am valuing my company at $340 billion and losing $5 to $7 billion a year. If my whole business model is now completely gone for a toss, right? Somebody's just released it into the wild for free. Essentially the same product. And enough people, like I am not an AI expert by any means, but enough and know people who have said that this is essentially the same or a better product. So what even is your product area?
Is this Britannica Encyclopedia versus Wikipedia? Or is that too simplistic?
I would say simultaneously simplistic, but also very, very relevant. But I'm on out into the wild.
Yeah.
But actually, no. It's where it differs is Wikipedia still needs money to run consistently. This is done.
Right.
And now anyone in the world can be doing improvements. So
Do these improvements then accrue to the model itself? How does that work? The mechanics of it?
there could be now 50 models. Everyone can build on top of this.
Right. But any improvement that I have done, after I have done it on the local model that's running on my machine, if you go and then download the pack or whatever and run it on your machine, do improvements that I have done reflecting your...
The beauty of open source is that how the community works is if I take something that is open source, I build on top of it, I can release that into the wild.
I should release that into the world.
Right. Unless I'm Krutrim. Or most of Indian
Meta, even the US tech guys, they're all, the core technologies are all open source. And they have contributed back, but I'm sure it's not this very of... Oh wait, this reminds me of a story that is tangentially related. Facebook in training, Meta in training its AI has been using PDFs of books going back.
Yeah.
They're using torrents and the fuckers aren't seeding,
Yeah.
which tracks, I mean, if
It drags.
if you've never used torrents before, it's you are indulging in piracy, and the basic courtesy is that you seed again. You also make the download that you have done available for other people to download. That's the way it works, and it's basic courtesy. And of course, Meta doesn't do that.
And also just so egregious that the tech industry has been saying for years, oh no, you can't pirate, that's the worst thing ever. You should go to jail. When these companies themselves are pirating at mass scale, like everything in the world. Yeah. But yeah, so if you're good with open source, then you see it and then you release it back into the wild. And you say, okay, I've opened this part up and somebody else can work on that. And everyone is building better models then.
Right.
So Sam Audit
Started to happen yet with DeepSeek?
So this is still 2 weeks old, just 2 weeks old. Now Alibaba has a cheaper model out.
Right.
I saw this tweet that AI researchers at Stanford and the University of Washington say that they have trained an AI reasoning model for under $50 in cloud compute credits. And I will release my own AI model next week, trained on shoelaces and a microwave oven. Basically, this is the result of that, right? In fact, now training costs are drastically going down, right? Immediately. And all these models will now be doing specific things. There could be an AI training model for real estate photography. Like, I don't know. Right. Then the follow-up question is, is Sam Altman going to become the next Aaron Niven? Which is also perfect timing because SoftBank has just stepped into the game.
Right.
The second question is, at what point does AI then become irrelevant in a way? So, again, tangential, like everyone was talking about Sora, the video model that will change the world when it's out. It was released 3 months ago.
Not much noise, huh?
Not much noise.
Yeah.
It's been out in the wild. And yeah.
Have you tried it?
Yeah. It's limited use.
Okay.
But it is going to be limited. So again, I am coming from the perspective of someone who does professional video production for companies.
Mm-hmm.
With company profile videos, obviously I can't use AI to do a shoot of an MD talking to his staff.
Right.
And obviously also then has to be an air quote because who knows now. Like in today morning I was reading that TikTok now has an AI model that can take one photo and turn it into a video of a guy who's talking and saying whatever you want, which again raises 20,000 questions. And probably the 90,000th is what happens to my business model then. But obviously you can see.
But if you sort by relevance, that's...
For me, yes. But for the world, because till now it was very difficult to make a deepfake. This is like deepfake taken to whatever if one video does it. But again, I have not tested this model. I've just seen the news today morning. Everything's moving too fast.
Right.
So many questions raised.
And one last thing I'll say on this: most news stories, especially around AI, if you dig a little under the surface, the headline usually doesn't hold up.
It's so much of it is just press releases, as we just news by press release. Yeah, just say whatever, somebody will print it.
So maybe just take a step back and wait for it to pan out a little bit before we pivot or try something else.
In what sense?
No, I was talking about your business.
Oh, my business model is not pivoting. My business model is safe for the next 10 years. I am very confident of that. And we've had these discussions with potential VC, whatever, right?
Yeah, I'm sure that must have
A
come.
bunch of people have told me, oh, why don't you just pivot to an infinite scale type model? So we are pure tech plus ops. I will get a shoot done in Coimbatore. Right. Scripting is happening at the back end, sitting in Noida. Somebody is doing the editing here like one of our editors is in Shimla. Right. And the shoot is happening in Coimbatore. Right. So it is a multimodal, everything coming together, tech plus people. Enough VCs have told me, why don't you just give tools so the client can come online and write his own script and do everything and just give AI tools, build infinite scale so that our valuations go through the roof, right? But it's not solving the real problems. Right. My business model is solving a real problem. It's obviously trickier and messier, but that's the real word.
And that's your motto.
That's my mood. Exactly.
Cool. On to the next one.
On to the next one.
All right. The second news story that I picked this week: Volkswagen India has had a bit of an iffy innings here, but they were served a tax notice on September 30th, 2024, which that date itself somebody had quarterly targets. All right. They were served a tax notice of 1.36 billion dollars. Wow. By the Indian authorities. This is a little intricate, but let's get into it. Most car parts, like if you have a car manufacturer, it's basically an assembly line, right? There are tens of thousands of components, and everything comes together on the assembly line that Henry Ford pioneered, and that's how cars are made. Some of these parts are locally sourced, made in India. Some of them come, in Volkswagen's case, they come from Mexico and Germany and the Czech Republic for Skoda. And so all those parts would come together. They have an assembly line here and they're bringing the car together here. The car itself is born here, but the parts can come from all over the world. There's a really complex supply chain behind it. Now, Indian customs being the way it is, oh, this is a tariff story. I didn't even realize that. We are discussing tariffs. So when you bring in spare parts, just spare parts, the Indian government says, look, this is for people who already bought cars, and so we want to keep the spare part taxes low, right? Because our chunk of the revenue in terms of GST and road tax and all that has already come when the car was sold. This is just maintenance. So spare parts have very low custom duties. And then you have cars. So you can either completely knock down the car, the engine is separate, the chassis is separate, all the parts are coming in here and you're doing the assembly here. In theory, that employs more people here. So then you have the next tier of duties there, maybe 15, 20%, something like that. And then you have the third model where the car is almost fully built, like the chassis and the engine have been married, and just the parts are coming separately. The other parts, the less high-tech parts, and then you bring everything together and the car is born. That has the higher of these three tiers. And the highest is if you bring in a fully built car, that's something like 120, 130%. Yeah, because the Indian government says you're not generating any jobs except at the dealership level if you do that. So the Indian government is saying that Volkswagen India imported parts, calling them parts, brought them in here, and then put them together and made cars. So they should have paid.
So these are not spare parts, these are
Exactly. Components.
components. Yeah.
You should have paid a higher tax. The differential is $1.36 billion, right? So that's a synopsis of what has happened, just stating the facts.
Yeah.
That's how the government of India sees it. Volkswagen is saying we had sought a written clarification for this in 2011. We have it in writing that we can do this. The crux of the issue is that dealers of Skoda and Volkswagen and Audi would punch in the orders and the backend would automatically take the order of a car and split it into all the parts, and those orders would go to Mexico and the Czech Republic.
Yeah.
Those parts would get shipped in here, and then the assembly would happen, right? Because of the part sharing that Volkswagen does, when the same 2-liter engine came in, even Volkswagen probably didn't know whether it's going to go into a Skoda or an Audi or a Volkswagen, right? So they said, how could we then declare this as a car? We don't know.
So I would think logically the only way to split this up is if the same component can be a spare part or a component, right? I would think if the company is ordering, then we have to see. If a dealer is ordering, I would assume it's a spare.
No, the auto supply chains are a lot more sophisticated than that. No, everything works on just in time.
Yeah.
So even when it's the company that's importing cars, it's aggregating demand from dealer orders, and all of this is happening with really, really tight time. They're just ordering a car.
Yeah.
On the back end, it's being broken down by the software into the parts that are required.
Yeah.
That's the place where the government of India has drawn a line. The customs officer, whoever issued this notice, has drawn the line and said, no, you're importing parts, is what I've understood so far from this. They're calling it a clandestine software, the dealer ordering software.
Volkswagen is known for clandestine.
Exactly. So
Yeah, well,
that's why this story is interesting. Both sides. First, Volkswagen, because you brought it up. Dieselgate. Volkswagen knowingly and for years and in a really cunning manner circumvented emissions testing. The fuckers programmed the car to know when it was being emission tested, because the steering is aligned and you're running it at certain revs, and so the car knew that it is being tested right now, and it would actually bring down the emissions just for that duration.
Which is also just as a sidebar, which is a very common thing in the tech industry. But Samsung and Apple are doing it for benchmarks.
Yeah.
These guys are doing it to circumvent pollution norms.
Exactly. And this was a good 10 years back.
Yeah.
So they knew what they were doing. It wasn't an accident. It probably went through multiple layers of approvals in a clandestine manner. And so Volkswagen's hands are not clean. They do not have a good track record on this. In the sense that if you tell somebody this has happened, most people would say, yeah, it tracks. It's the sort of thing that Volkswagen would be okay with. That's the image that they have. On the other side, the Indian government has been known to tax retrospectively. There are two very famous cases. Vodafone.
Yes.
Hutchison SR. Do you remember Hutch? Did you have Hutch in Delhi?
Yeah.
Okay. So Hutchison SR set up one of the first mobile networks in India, and then they said, no, this is not working. And so they sold their assets to Vodafone. While the assets were in India, the licenses were in India, the company itself was registered overseas. And so that transfer happened overseas, and they said, we are not liable to pay any taxes in India. The parent company has changed. The assets are still here. And the Indian government said, no, that's capital gains. You have to pay taxes on that. And that was the crux of the whole tax issue there, which they finally lost. They had to say, okay, we shouldn't do retrospective taxation. It was terrible for investors.
Yeah.
Investor sentiment, right? That how can the government just go back and tax you for something that happened years ago? That's retrospective taxation. Another case, Keynes India sold their mining assets to Vedanta. And same dynamics. They said, no, we will tax you retrospectively. That went into arbitration. Keynes India won. And the Indian government said, no, we're not going to pay. They threatened to seize Indian government's apartments in Paris. They threatened to seize Air India planes.
What finally happened? Because I remember that was a big story 5 years ago.
They paid off. The Indian government paid them back.
Oh, wow.
So
This was when? What year was this? 5-6 years ago?
2018, I should think. Yeah, memory serves. So on both sides of the dispute, you have people with checkered pasts, and so it's interesting. Let's see how this plays out.
And so retrospective taxation sounds like, one way of looking at it is things that have happened, we have now decided to tax you for that. The other is interpretation
That weren't taxable when you did that.
that weren't taxable when you did them.
Yeah.
But tax law is also very, very confusing. So if the government says, look, what you did 3 years ago was actually supposed to be taxable, then is that retrospective taxation? It's not like it One way is, okay, it was very clear. When you did this, if you sell this to this, you pay 18%. Now we are saying, oh, no, 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 we should have paid 20. We have now decided that this should have been 28%. That is retrospective, clearly. Right. But if the government says, no, no, what you did does not fall under 18%, it falls under 28%.
You're saying it's a matter of interpretation?
Yes. I'm guessing that's the government's case. That we are interpreting this as something that qualifies under this tax and not as under this tax.
Right. Okay. So how do you feel about this? At the same time, the government of India has also issued a notice to Kia.
Yeah.
For $155 million. Same circumstances for the Carnival MPV. That, even Kia did the same thing. So is this part of a larger pattern by automakers, or is this somebody trying to meet their targets?
So I do, yes, in my head, there's a default assumption that, okay, this 7-year window is closing for whom all just send out mass notices.
And we're nearly afterwards. Yeah. The problem is once you get that notice, even while you fight it, you have to deposit 20% of what you're liable for.
Aside. So because I knew the first story would get long, my second story is going to be very, very quick. I had changed it. I was going to talk about Microsoft earnings.
Right.
But they're boring. It's like, yeah, we made a bunch more money. And AI. Here's like $50 billion for AI or something like that. So I found this interesting tweet, thread, of a guy who decided to go through research papers searching for the term certainly, hairs, which is a tell of ChatGPT starting to answer a thread.
Right.
And people just copy pasting the whole thing. So he found from Pakistan a research paper on plasma injection for shoulder function. So there is a university being referenced here. And university research that he's quoted in that study, like, certainly, here's a continuation for your manuscript based on your provided format and instructions.
Verbatim.
There is in India, there is steps in developing a bioherbicide research paper. Certainly, here's a more detailed explanation of the 3 essential stages. There is nanomaterial chemistry, which goes with certainly, here's a clearer and more descriptive rewrite of the text. The combination of nanomaterials represents a novel approach in the realm of advanced catalysts.
That's either AI or an engineering student in a Viva saying a lot without saying anything.
It's AI. But interestingly, so the inputs for ChatGPT, at least, so this part, so New York Times has sued OpenAI for for theft, plagiarism of their data as part of their training set. And I believe the 3 top sources for ChatGPT training were the US Patent Office, just because there's so many PDFs lying around.
They are public documents.
Wikipedia, and the New York Times. Which is why words like craft, delve, realm just pop up so commonly across answers.
That's the New York Times.
That's the New York Times writing over 100 years. So that's my second story. I would keep it quick.
Are there any other tells that you've noticed?
So LinkedIn is an easy one. LinkedIn is now, like all social media is now AI talking to AI, like it's heading there, right? So LinkedIn, anytime I see a post with 3 emojis or more, and that rocket ship launching emoji is a tell of LinkedIn AI at work, very, very clearly. Game changer. So I saw this Adobe tweet of this new product they're launching. Like Adobe is now trying to compete with Canva, because all their new announcements this year were about how to act. It's all ChatGPT, right? Eventually, because now they have really improved upon their object removal, which has been a part of Photoshop for 10 years now.
Right.
It's improved, but now they're calling it AI. It was always there, right? It's been there for 10 years. It's, of course, gotten much better and much easier. But yeah, but this year's announcements were more like, okay, if you're trying to make a flyer in Photoshop, just click here, it'll give you text.
Okay.
Which is competing with Canva and just pulling from a ChatGPT type text, whatever, right? So this announcement on LinkedIn had like so many likes and so many whatever. And all the comments were like, oh, this is a game changer for marketers everywhere. Marketers everywhere, this is a game changer for you. This is going to be an absolute game changer. That's a clear tell that all these answers are AI written. Like LinkedIn Premium gives you AI. And this says start writing with AI. Do you want AI help in writing, whatever?
Right.
So, game changer is an absolute tell for me. 3 emojis is a tell. I'm seeing a lot of that on Twitter also.
Have you heard of a dead internet theory?
That eventually it's all bots talking to bots. Yeah, pretty much. Getting there.
Sad, but
Pretty sad. And the whole internet is just disappearing.
which was my favorite place in the world.
Yeah. I remember the IRC days.
Yeah.
And people blogging just for the love of it.
I feel so strongly about this that I actually wrote a newsletter. Right? I don't know which tense to use. Just chronicling important moments of internet history. This happened and this happened. And about a month in, I realized that just linking to a certain YouTube video or a certain Reddit comment is not going to be enough.
Yeah.
Because it takes very little for that original media to just disappear. The Internet Archive is great. I started posting screenshots, links to Internet Archive, but even then, it hurt to see how much of what I remembered of the internet is no longer around.
So one very clear example of that. A lot of photography forums, people used to use PhotoBucket for hosting images. Now it's just dead. All those images are dead because PhotoBucket, I think the company's still alive, but they moved to this paid plan suddenly, and people's old images just completely disappeared. So now there's so many forums. Like I go search for, Acha, should I buy this lens? Sony 85mm Grand, like G Master lens. Should I buy it? And people are like, oh, here's a photo I took of, this wedding of, and it's just dead PhotoBucket link. So yeah.
Oh, one last thing then. Team BHP, have you heard of it? India's largest auto forum. They've never stated this as far as I know, but on one of the more interesting threads, it's a common pattern. You ask, these are my requirements, which car do you think I should buy? And people gave their inputs. And this was an interesting case because it was a senior citizen who's a doctor, a lady doctor, who drives herself every day and wanted a sporty car, which is an unusual set of requirements. And so it was quite an active thread. And then finally, the person who had asked the question posted an elaborate, here's the car we bought, here are some pictures, and here's why we chose it. And it was up for less than 4 hours, 5 hours before it was taken down. I said, no, on Team ESP, we are not going to allow anything written by AI on a chat forum. They took it down.
That's interesting. Good. But how did they tell it was written by AI?
They probably used some tool for it, right?
Those tools are also unreliable.
Yeah, I know. Or maybe it had too many of the tells.
Yeah, could be.
So for now, they're able to, and they were confident enough to just strike it down, and say, we know this is done by AI, and we're not going to allow it.
Like Reddit, I see a lot of stuff that's written by AI. Very clear.
It's pretty obvious.
That's Twitter also.
Yeah.
Like the Twitter, people are sharing screenshots on Blue Sky. Today's Twitter For You page is Trump talking about paper straws and passing, like he will pass an executive order banning paper straws because paper straws are apparently woke.
I don't know if some news is parody or not anymore.
I
Can't tell.
Oh, by the way, there's also a real tweet by Kanye West today morning saying he turned down 3 Make-A-Wish requests for kids in wheelchairs to meet with him. In all caps.
Then we also somehow get to Hitler.
I think so.
Same tweet.
I think he said I'm now very
The headline enraged me enough that I didn't go deeper. I'm like, okay, it's just Kanye being Kanye. Alright. It's sad, but this is one thing I choose not to care about.
I like Blue Sky.
Yeah, okay. I've been meaning to check it out. As you've been recommending it. I think I'll finally get onto it.
Like even my Instagram thing has gone down a lot. I'm going to move back to Flickr for my photos. So,
Alright.
third story.
Third story. My third story is about Zomato, the parent company, rebranding itself to Eternal. Or as well, that just rolls off. Eternal Limited. Zomato, the corporate parent.
Yeah.
So the Zomato app will still be called Zomato, but the corporate parent, like Facebook, became
Like
picked up.
and like Alphabet and Google.
Google and Alphabet, exactly. I think Dipender would like us to reference Google more than Meta because it was a more thought out and well explained
Yep.
transition. I don't like the name Eternal.
Eternal is just the
It's quite trash. His reasoning is that we now have four major businesses: Zomato itself, which is delivery and restaurant menus; Blinkit, which is quick commerce; District is cool.
district is cool. At least it's competition.
Yeah, for my show. So they acquired Paytm's Insider for 2,000 crores, something like that, and rebranded it to District.
Yeah, district
That's
is
the
cool.
cloud business.
I mean, like competition's good.
Yeah, because Book My Show had the run of the place, no?
Yeah.
Pretty much. And the fourth is Hyperpure.
Wish.
Yeah. So, which would you say is the most problematic of all four of Zomato's businesses? Zomato itself, Blinkit, District, I think so far we are okay with because they've just gotten on the scene. Ticketmaster in the US gets a lot of hate because
Yeah.
of the monopoly that they have and the charges that they levy. So,
So my problem is monopolization.
okay.
So this is a ever-changing answer depending on which market they seem to be capturing too much. And overall, of course, yes, the data is the problem that they control so much data on all aspects of how the industry works that at any point they can turn the screws on anyone. That's a problem for sure. Too big is absolutely a problem.
In any of the verticals that Zomato is in.
And you never know when they be running their own ghost kitchens, right? They just announced some, right, last month, and the restaurant association said that we're filing a case or something.
But that was in the quick commerce verticals. Both the quick commerce guys said we're going to start cloud kitchens for hyper fast.
Like Zento cafe type stuff.
That's
Whereas their own, I thought those were also tie-ups.
they are tie-ups, but then they're exclusively they've tightened timelines, limited number of dishes, and
Like I think the Indian e-commerce FDI regulations that came in like 6-7 years ago, they got a lot of flack.
Press Note 3. I don't know.
Yeah, I think Press Note 3.
Yeah.
They got a lot of flack, but I think it was fairly forward-thinking. That you need to, maybe it was misdirected in a way or misimplemented, but absolutely own brands should be a problem. You should either be a platform or you should be a manufacturer. If you're both, then your site has to be kept in check.
There's an exception to that. Not in India. There is an exception to that. Costco is huge. They have their own brands and they're doing all right.
But Costco is one retailer, right? What percentage of the market do they control?
Oh, I don't know Costco's market share, but it's big. Great question, man. I'll dig more into that. I love the company. Love everything they do.
Kirkland's a great brand. Yeah. So fair enough, that's an exception. But I think then it just comes down to subjectively whatever, because we love the, like, whatever we've heard of Costco seems like it's a well-run company also.
Yeah.
Not run by assholes.
That was going to be my closing argument.
Yeah.
That the problem isn't the monopoly itself. It's the fact that assholes thrive.
But also power makes you assholes, right? In general. Too much power.
No, we're going to stick to business and tech. We won't stick into philosophy or ethics. Sometimes ethics, but not quite so deep.
Which is my story 3. The US government is now seemingly run by bachas. Doge, Department of Government Efficiency. ProPublica and Wired are doing series of... So, okay, 1 minute summary. Since Trump has come to power, Musk has taken over the entire US government, going department by department. So, the agencies that now are completely overrun by Musk's people sitting in there and taking over data, like right access to their whatever is the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services, which is insurance for old people.
Right.
The Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, the Department of Education, the Department of Energy, which controls the nuclear launch codes. Amazing. The Environmental Protection Agency, the General Services Administration, which sounds boring, but it's like a huge Yeah, bunch of everything. Department of Labor, the Treasury,
Yeah, I was going to bring up the treasury.
US Aid, which has always been a controversial agency because it's been a huge source of directing where the US invests and what public posturing it does and what dictators it props up and what coups it sort of whatever. There's been a huge part of that along with the CIA. But yeah, so they said that they will fire 9,700 of out of 10,000 US aid workers in a certain whatever. Now, today morning, a court has blocked that because the union went to court. So the court said, no, you can't fire them, indefinitely postponed. So there's too much happening. But interesting part is, so ProPublica is doing this series on who are the people that Musk is sending in. There are some high school students. There was one guy that these guys did not want to name because apparently he is still a minor. There was one guy who calls himself Big Balls.
Let's see. The payments, the treasury operations, having a teenager in control is genuinely terrifying, as is all of the rest. But I don't think we realize just how much all of the global payment systems are dependent on the dollar, of course.
Yeah.
But the treasury itself, one way or another. US bonds are like the foundation of finances for many countries. Even if they're not directly related to it, it forms a basis for spreads, for policy, for everything. So it's ordinarily I would say this is fun and for shits and giggles, but too much is at stake.
Too much is at stake. No, the USA does a lot of stuff. There's a people will die. People will absolutely die in a lot of places.
Let's see how it turns out.
Yes, that was our first and yeah, probably our only live episode in a while because I will go back to Noida now. So yeah, thank you for watching, listening, whatever it is. Our YouTube channel will pop up. Yeah, soon enough. See you next time.
Bye bye.